Hello, this is my take on the Paulimot PM3700, and there's plenty of videos showing you how to take the boxes to pieces, so I'm going to show you a few of the other bits that were important and the differences that I've made to the machine, which might be of interest to somebody. So what's the first thing you do when you get a new machine? That's right, you take it to bits. So I'll insert a few photographs now, and then I'll zoom in on the individual bits. Now for the downside. The machine came, and when I inspected the oil in the gearboxes, of course it's full of crap and iron dust. So there's some good videos on flushing out the headstock, but just for extra information, this is what I used: a garden spray with a long nozzle, because you can get it right down between the shafts, right to the bottom of the main gearbox, and sort of flush the debris out through the drain hole. And I used just paraffin or kerosene or paraffina, whichever language you want to call it. So I'll attach a photograph of the oil next. Okay, this is the revised back of the machine. Now the first thing is the the hole for the 3-phase circuit breaker will only need a single phase trip in there now, and where the big red on-off switch was, isolator switch was located, I've now put a socket with a USB output on it, and the USB feeds the light over the top, which I quite like, because you've got control over the brightness and the colour of the light, and put the light where you want it, well out the way of those lights that are fixed to the end of the carriage. So we've added some ventilation into the cabinet, because it's putting the electronics in there is a bit of a squeeze, and we've got one of these locks again, which I rather like. So if we have a look inside, we've got the new inverter, we've got a 24-volt power supply that feeds the RPM display, and I've located the switch at the top there. In there, which you can just about see, is a no volt release relay, and we've got all the original guard switches up there, and the potentiometer, you might just be able to see it hidden in the back there. So yes, it's a bit of a tight fit, but it's all gone in reasonably well. So it required some modifications to the metal plate that holds the DIN rail that everything is fixed to, but I'm quite pleased with that. So let's turn it off now. Okay, the reason I put an inverter on it, the reason I chose this machine was it came with a 3-phase motor. Although I have 3-phase in the house where I want to put it, 3-phase was inconvenient, so I was quite happy to buy the 3-phase machine and to put a variable speed inverter on it, because the lowest speed is 45 RPM, which you can see here. But I still think that's a bit fast for screw cutting, where you want to cut right up close as possible to a shoulder. So I'll turn the inverter on. I'll show you some photos of how the inverter's been squeezed into the cabinet at the back. So let's... There we go. 45. Down to nice and slow. I like to use this for tapping as well, especially as you can stop it, stick it in reverse and run the tap out again. There we have it. Okay, the reason for playing with the cross-slide mount was to get a bigger distance from the centre down to the compound slide, in order to get a bigger tool height in. So with this Action tool post, which is the number 2 series I think it is, I can get a 16mm tool in there, and there's just a small amount of clearance underneath, which is fine. If you put the multi-fix tool post that Paulimot recommend, you possibly might get a 20mm one height tool in, which would be pretty good. So let's I'll take the compound slide off and do a few pictures of that for information. Okay, first we've got a new spindle in there, and a modification on the bottom of the tool post to take the shoulder there. So the objective, my objective, is not to modify the machine, so it can always be put back to standard if I want to. Okay, this is the view underneath, and you can see this plate is screwed to the bottom of the slide with 4 6mm screws. It required a slight modification to the washer that holds the brass nut in underneath, but nothing serious, nothing that prevents the original system being put back if I wanted to. Now the base plate here is a simple piece of I think it was 12mm plate machined down to about 10mm, with a piece of 10mm machined down to about 8mm inside here. So this is the one that rotates, and there's a shoulder underneath it, so it clamps up onto this surface and pulls it down onto here, so you've got much more support around the tool area. So the reason there's a profiled edge here is just that the plate I had, piece of plate I had laying around, was about that wide, so I put a couple of runs of weld on there just to give it a little more support in that position. I think it would have been quite okay without it, but it was easier to do it whilst I was out in the shed.